In movies, being a mob boss means expensive suits, cigars, and respect. In reality, it's paranoia, betrayal, and dying in a puddle of your own piss. Zero romance. Today, we're going through the final minutes of 5 of history's most notorious gangsters, from Bonnie and Clyde to Al Capone. But one of them died so ridiculously, it looks more like a joke than a crime chronicle. Who is this lucky guy? You'll find out at the very end. You know, when you fight with your significant other about who didn't wash the dishes, just remember Bonnie and Clyde. For these guys, a dream date ended in a shootout with the cops, and a romantic dinner was a stolen can of food in the woods. Now that is a truly toxic relationship. But let's get serious. Hollywood sold us a beautiful fairy tale about Romeo and Juliet with machine guns. Total bullshit. In reality, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were dirty, exhausted scumbags who killed simple gas station attendants and shopkeepers for a couple of bucks for gas. By the end of their tour, they reeked of sweat and fear living in their car. May 23, 1934, Louisiana. Texas Rangers led by Frank Hamer had been waiting for them in the bushes for 2 days. Hamer wasn't planning to arrest them, he came to hunt. Clyde stopped his stolen Ford V8 to say hello to the father of a gang member the cops used as bait. That was the fatal second. No hands up, no you have the right to remain silent. The Rangers just squeezed their triggers. 6 guns opened heavy fire, 130 bullets. Imagine that sound. The car turned into a colander in 3 seconds. Bullets tore through metal, upholstery, and bodies. So much lead went into Bonnie and Clyde that when the Undertaker tried to embalm them, he had to wrap the bodies in plastic bags. The embalming fluid was just leaking out through the numerous holes in their suits. But the wildest part happened right after the shooting. When the smoke cleared, local rubberneckers ran to the shot-up car. Think they called an ambulance? No. They whipped out pocket knives. People tried to cut off a lock of Bonnie's hair, a piece of her bloody dress. Someone even tried to saw off Clyde's ear as a souvenir. The Rangers had to beat the crowd back with rifle butts. That's public love for you, damn it. They would have torn them to pieces like souvenirs from Disneyland. Alright, enough of American hillbillies. Let's move to London. Tea, biscuits, the Queen, and twin brothers who could carve your eyes out with a teaspoon without spilling a drop of Earl Grey. Imagine the Weasley twins from Harry Potter, but on steroids and running a protection racket at Hogwarts. London, the swinging 60s. Ronnie and Reggie Kray. These two held the entire East End in an iron fist. By day, they drank champagne with lords and movie stars in their clubs, and by night, they nailed competitors to the floor. Ronnie was a clinical paranoid schizophrenic dreaming of a utopian city, and Reggie was a cold, calculating businessman trying to keep his brother from total madness. They thought they were untouchable, but the system, like a giant steamroller, slowly but surely crushed them. Both got life sentences. And that's where the real torture began for men used to being kings of life. Not the electric chair, not a bullet, but oblivion. Ronnie went completely mad and died in the Broadmoor Prison Hospital from a heart attack at 61. He got fat, bloated, and lost touch with reality. And Reggie? His fate is even more ironic. He was released only in 2000. But not because he was rehabilitated, but because bladder cancer was eating him alive, and it was cheaper for the authorities to let him die at home. The Kray brothers were chaos. Our next hero is pure corporate management. If the Mafia were Apple, this guy would be Steve Jobs. Only instead of firing employees, he sent them to the bottom of the river in cement shoes. Charles Lucky Luciano. The father of the modern mafia. He was the one who invented the Commission, a board of directors for criminals to stop shooting each other and start making money together. He turned banditry into a transnational corporation. He survived gang wars, prison, assassination attempts. His throat was slit, but he survived, hence the nickname Lucky. 1962, Naples, airport. Luciano, gray-haired, elegant, in an impeccable suit, meets an American producer. He wants to discuss a movie script about his life. He feels great, he's rich, he's a legend. He shakes the guest's hand, smiles, and suddenly his face goes pale. He just drops like a sack of potatoes. Massive heart attack. A second, and that's it. the man who ordered hundreds of murders, died while about to grab a coffee at the airport. Tourists bustled around, someone called for a doctor, but the great lucky Luciano was already dead. Fate is a bitch with a twisted sense of humor. You can run from the FBI, but you can't outrun a clogged artery. Our next character had honor on the level of, well, I don't know, a used condom? Imagine a man giving lectures on loyalty to the Brotherhood while texting the FBI. James Whitey Bulger. Boss of the Irish mob in Boston, the prototype for Jack Nicholson's character in The Departed, he terrorized the city for years, killed women, strangled rivals with his bare hands. And all this time, he was the FBI's top snitch. He ratted out Italians so the feds would clear the field for him. Genius? Maybe. Rat? Definitely. When his cover was blown, he went on the run. For 16 years, he led everyone by the nose, living in sunny Santa Monica with piles of cash walled up in his apartment. They only caught him in 2011. He got 2 life sentences. It would seem an 89-year-old man, a wheelchair, end of story. But prison doesn't forgive rats. The criminal world has a long memory. In 2018, Bulger was transferred to a new prison in West Virginia. The guards, accidentally or on purpose, left him in the general population unit. 12 hours after arrival, 3 inmates walked into the old man's cell. Weapon? A standard padlock stuffed in a sock. Effective and brutal. They turned Bulger's head into ground meat. His eyes were gouged out, a Mafia signature for those who saw too much. His tongue, rumor has it, they tried to cut out, for those who talked too much. Regards from the Brotherhood reached the addressee half a century later. The snitch got his reward. Only the boss of bosses remains, the human brand. The case where you're so cool you get locked up not for a mountain of corpses, but because you were too greedy to pay taxes on a new yacht. Remember, death and taxes are unavoidable. But for Capone, death turned out to be way less pleasant than a tax audit. Al Capone, symbol of Chicago. The man who said, "You can get much farther with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone." He was the king of the world, but prison broke him, and not through the cruelty of guards. In Alcatraz, a terrible truth came out. The Mafia king had advanced neurosyphilis. The disease was literally eating his brain alive. In prison, he was no longer the fearsome Al Capone. He was a scared, drooling vegetable who got bullied even by petty thieves in the shower. When they released him, doctors stated the former criminal genius had the intellect of a 12-year-old child. He spent his final years in his luxurious mansion in Florida. The great gangster sat by the pool all day in pajamas, holding a fishing rod and fishing in the chlorinated water of the pool. He talked to dead friends he had ordered killed himself and smiled at the void. January 25th, 1947, a stroke put an end to it. The great beast turned into a harmless fool long before his physical death. Since you're still here, smash that gangster like button and subscribe. And also check out these videos. See you soon!